Hey, it's Alex Rack from BoardGameCo, and this is a list of the top 10 worst value for your dollar board games. Now, you already know that because you clicked on the video. But that being said, the reason I'm doing this video is because in my previous video where I talked about the top 10 best value for your dollar board games, I saw a comment that was basically saying, why don't you do one for the worst value for your dollar? And I thought that was a great idea. But to be clear, this is not a list where we rag on a bunch of terrible games. That's a waste of time. That's an easy list. If you just pick a bunch of garbage games, then where's the fun in that? Of course any game is a bad value, and in fact, we'll start with that. The first item on this list is going to be any garbage game in general. Now, don't hate on Ninja All-Stars over here. I'm just picking this off the shelf. I'll get to why I'm picking it up in a second. But the first item on this list is the general concept of buying a bad game just because it's cheap. That is a terrible value. Don't do that. Stop doing that. Don't run to every single bargain bin that you can find where someone's selling a cheap game because the market didn't like it, people didn't like it, the reviews are terrible, and expect that you're getting a good deal. Now, if you're a collector and you just want everything, or maybe you don't have a lot of games, you're low on money and you want to buy them, then by all means, go for it. But if you have a bunch of good games on your shelf, then understand that sometimes garbage games are cheap for a reason. Of course, you might be the person who loves that game. In fact, Ninja All-Stars, there are people who love this game. There are. I have it because it was a cheap way to get a bunch of miniature minis, and my kids love ninjas. That's why I'm picking this game, not because I specifically want to rag on Ninja All-Stars, but because it was cheap. Comparatively speaking, for the miniatures you get, this is a cheap game. Be mindful of the fact that just because a game is cheap doesn't mean it's a good value. Very often, the Leonardo da Vinci was a game that for a long time was available everywhere for $5-10 because people couldn't get rid of it. I'm sure there are people who like it, but for you, for your own tastes, understand that ratings do matter a little bit. Ratings are great for giving you a reference point as to whether a game is for you or not. And a game that is cheap is it's not a good value just because it's cheap. Number 2 on this list is exit games. And I don't have any exit games, so I'm just going to put unlock games here instead. But the exit series is a bunch of escape room games in a box that ultimately it's a game that will cost you $10-15 depending on where you buy it, used, new, although used is tricky because you have to buy it unplayed. But it's a series of games that it gives you an escape room in a box, but that $15 or whatever it costs to buy it will give you one play, and then you are done with it because you destroy components along the way. And at $15 for a single play, that's a pretty harsh value even compared to pretty expensive board games out there. Now, of course, it's a great value if you want an experience. If you want an escape room, if you want to go to an actual escape room, it's going to cost you far more than $15. And an exit game can give 3-4 players, possibly more, a good experience for $15. But compared to the market of board games, that's a pretty harsh value. And that's why I have the Unlock series, because the Unlock series can be replayed, does not destroy any components, and so I figured I'm going to make my way through every single Unlock game before I try another exit game. And I say another because I did try one exit game. I thought it was important to know whether they were better, and for me it wasn't. For me it was the same experience as an Unlock game, although many I'm sure would disagree because that's the beautiful thing about opinions. We all have them, and mine is just one of them. Number 3 on this list is out-of-print games. Out-of-print games, and I'm going to pick Forbidden Stars as my reference point, and we will get to, some of these games are references to general categories, and some of them are specific games. And so in this case, Forbidden Stars is more of a placeholder for the general category of buying out-of-print games. When you buy an out-of-print game, it doesn't mean it's bad. I mean, there's a reason I own Forbidden Stars, and it's because I played half a game and I really liked it. That's the reason. And I want to play more, but I haven't played a full game yet. But Forbidden Stars is a supposedly great game. It's a reprint of StarCraft, but then they were going to expand it, and then they lost the license, so it's all a mess, but it looks cool, it looks fun, I hope to play it more. But ultimately, when you buy an out-of-print game, what you're effectively doing is you're paying a premium to get that game, and that premium is not in alignment with the experience, it's not in alignment with the experience that the game is giving you. That premium means that you are paying more just because the game is scarce. And that means that it's overpriced. It's not a good value for your dollar. It might be an amazing game, and it might be the only chance you have to get that game. Many of the games on this list I actually own. And that's because sometimes we do make sacrifices and we buy things that are a bad value because sometimes we value the experience that we wanted enough. And that can be enough. But is it a good value for your dollar? No. No, it isn't. Wait till the game's back in print, if it will be. This probably will never be. Some games will. Bruges, which was another game I almost picked for this list, is one that is going to be back in print, although I don't know if I'll not want the new version or the old version, but that's another story. The point is that when you buy a game that is out of print, you are paying a premium that does not reflect the experience you are getting. It reflects the scarcity of the product, and that makes the game a bad value for your dollar. Number 4 on this list is a game that I don't have. There's only 2 of those. There's only 2 games on this list where I don't have anything in place. I guess technically Exit, but I cleverly put Unlock there so it looks like I have it. It gives you the feel of me talking about it. But number 4 on this list is Tapestry. Tapestry is a game that I picked it very specifically. And really I should have grabbed maybe something else from the shelf, but it's the general concept of when you have a game that is overproduced, when you have a game like Everdell, like Vindication. There are many examples I can give where it's an expensive box of goods. And when I say Everdell, to be clear, because Everdell was on my great value, I mean if you get the premium collector's edition of Everdell. There are a lot of games where you can get a bunch of premium stuff for that game that will make that game more expensive than it needs to be, and that can be a factor in the value for your dollar aspect. The reason I'm specifically picking Tapestry, and it's not a category in this case, it's specifically Tapestry, is because Tapestry had a fairly high price tag attached to it when it first came out. And the hype kept it going, and people paid premiums to get that game, and they still pay premiums to get that game, except when it's on sale, of course. But Tapestry, unfortunately, did not deliver the ratings that would go in alignment with that price tag. It did not get the follow-through on that hype. It seems to be a game people like, don't get me wrong. It wasn't for me, I didn't keep it, but I still enjoyed my 2 plays of it. But it's a game that ultimately, because of the amount of premiumness they packaged into that box, combined with the lack of a premium experience to go along with it, does, in my opinion, make Tapestry an overpriced game. It makes it a bad value for your dollar. If Tapestry is available for 30, 40 bucks, it's a game that's probably worth giving a shot, trying out. It might be for you. Sure, there are balance issues, but the core game is fun. I like what they did with the game. I just don't like the balance issues in the game, and I'd rather play something else because of that. But ultimately, Tapestry is a game that is probably worth checking out, but only at the right price tag. Which brings us to number 5, which is one of the games in this list I haven't played, even though I own it, which is Cthulhu Wars. Cthulhu Wars, and this giant box of a game over here, Cthulhu Wars is definitely overpriced. It's definitely overpriced, and I wrestled with some of the games I picked on this list because, for instance, Too Many Bones is a game that I considered for this list. It's definitely expensive, but the experience it gives you for that money, Vindication as well, I mentioned that already. Vindication is also expensive, but the experience some games give you, I have a hard time saying those games are overpriced, considering the amount of content they give, considering the amount of experience that they give you. So Vindication and Too Many Bones, while they made the shortlist for this list I put together, they didn't make the actual game, the actual list. Versus Cthulhu Wars, I haven't played it, so take my opinion with a grain of salt, but I really want to play it. But this is a $200 game that's giving you an experience akin to Blood Rage, it's giving you an experience akin to Kemet, akin to any of these big box games where you fight each other. This is just a giant hoard of plastic, big gigantic miniatures in this box that are contributing to a much higher price tag than I think the experience is that you're getting out of it. Does it mean you shouldn't own it? Heck no, it's right here. This is my copy. I want this game. I want the experience it promises. I've seen rave reviews. But in terms of the amount of content, whereas Too Many Bones gives you adventure after adventure after adventure, this gives you a game, a singular experience. And that experience might vary, but you can pick up Blood Rage for 60 bucks, and that's a heck of a good game right there. So why should you pick up Cthulhu Wars? Probably because you have poor impulse control, like I do. That's really the reason. Or sometimes you get to a point where you're willing to pay for a premium experience once you have enough games. That's something I plan on talking about in another video at a certain point. But once you have enough games, you start valuing the types of experiences that you think suit yourself rather than the sheer quantity of experience. I mentioned the first item on this list was garbage games that are available for cheap. Yeah, I went through that phase too. I went through a phase where I picked up every single game that was reasonably priced because I wanted to have everything on my shelf. And 500 games and not nearly enough of them played later, I pivoted and I started getting games that I think reflect my taste, no matter the price tag, as opposed to the price tag no matter my taste. So that's basically it. That's Cthulhu Wars. Next up from there we have a tough one. This is going to get me a lot of hate, and it should. It should get me a lot of hate. And this is Crokinole. Crokinole, whoa, look at this guy. This is my deluxe Sorry for that audio there. This is my deluxe version of Crokinole that I love. I love this board. I love pulling this game out, flicking discs across the table, knocking someone into the center, back out, whatever. This is the ultimate flicking game. Every flicking game that has ever come out is still secondary to Crokinole, except for the 4 people who want Pitch Car and the 3 people who did unsubscribed. But my opinion is that Crokinole is the pinnacle of flicking games, and no other experience comes close in rivaling the simplicity, the elegance, the beautiful board, the beautiful little spin. This little thing here, this spin, that's fun. You can't get that in one of these, you know, cheaper Mayday boards that you get. Nothing against Mayday. It's a great price point. But Crokinole is overpriced for the experience it delivers. A board like this will cost you between $200 to $250, possibly more once you factor in shipping. These things are custom made often, and they're gorgeous. It's absolutely, this is a work of art. I want to hang this on a wall. I should be hanging this on a wall somewhere. I don't know why I haven't yet. But $250 for a flicking game is a steep price to pay, and you have to think that's a terrible value for your dollar. You can get Pitch Car and 4 expansions or whatever for that amount of money. You can play tons of races around a board and have a ton of experience. You can pick up Pitch Car, Flick of Faith, some other flicking game. I don't know what other flicking games are there. There's a bunch of flicking games out there. Pick up Dungeon Fighter, which isn't flicking but is dexterity. Pick up Catacombs. You can get 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 games for the price of this game. In fact, if you look at my top 10 list of the best value dollar for your game, best value for your dollar games, Crokinole, or this particular copy here, is probably equal to the price tag of that entire list. That's a lot of money for a singular experience. But it is pretty. It sure is pretty. I'm not getting rid of this one anytime soon. But is it a terrible value for your dollar? You bet it is. It's a terrible value. But it's pretty. From there we move on to the next one, and I have to clear the table for this because I'll leave this in view because of how pretty it is. It's right over here. In view. Readily accessible when we want it. From there, we're going to move on to the concept of going all in on things. And yes, come on, I'm looking at you. And with Massive Darkness currently on Kickstarter, this is a good time to reflect on the fact that sometimes you don't need everything. Sometimes having enough. Let's just put this all down here. This is what I have for Zombicide. And yes, I have Zombicide Season 2 coming my way as well. This is what I have. This is not worth it. This is not worth it in the slightest. I think it's messing with my audio here, so I'm gonna move this a bit. But this is not worth it. The experience you are getting here is certainly not worth what you are paying to get everything on this table. This is a lot of Zombicide. This is a lot of zombies. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Zombicide. But I particularly love Black Plague. I think Black Plague delivers an excellent experience. I love some of the expansions, or all the expansions for Black Plague. Green Horde is also up there for me. It's very good. I like a lot of the stuff they do. I haven't played everything yet, and I still prefer Black Plague, but Green Horde is good. And Invader, I think I'm going to get rid of Invader eventually. But that nuance about Zombicide aside, the point is that I'm not playing Zombicide enough to enjoy or benefit from the amount of content I have. Do I recommend, going all in on Black Plague? Yes, I do. It's an excellent experience, and that would 100% be worth it. But I've picked the best of the best, and then I've added more to it. Black Plague is an excellent game. I absolutely love it, but I've added Green Horde that I play once a year, and I've added Zombicide Invader that I feel I should give more plays to, but I'm not right now. Sometimes getting everything, going all in, is far more experience than you'll ever need. And it will depend on the game, and the reason I keep doing it is because Come On Games do a good job of holding their value, so I'll take the risk. Even a Massive Darkness, I'm probably going all in. We'll see if I'll have to cover it before the campaign ends, but I'm probably going all in on that one. But that's because I believe it'll hold its value, and if I do like it, then I want everything. Cthulhu Death May Die is a game that I want everything for because I actually have gone through it. Black Plague I want everything for because I actually have gone through it. Many other Come On games, I haven't gone through everything, and I probably don't need it. And to that extent, while it might hold its value if I sell it, as long as it's sitting on my shelf, that's a terrible value for your dollar. That's a lot of games that you could be playing, that you could be buying, that we're just not because they are, in the way. I'm not going to try to clear the table from this entirely, but we'll move to the next one. Next up we have on the list, we have number 8, we have Splotter Games as a category. And again, lots of hate in this video. There's going to be a lot of hate, because why? I mean, there should be. The idea that I am picking Food Chain Magnate and the expansion, well, any Splotter game, but Food Chain Magnate and the expansion as a reference point for an overpriced game, I welcome the comments down below telling me how wrong I am. I welcome them, because don't get me wrong, I own both these games. I own the expansion. I own Roads and Boats, Antiquity. I don't own I own Indonesia, I own Antiquity, I got rid of the Great Western Zimbabwe just because I figured I have to play more of them, but Food Chain Magnate is one of my favorite games of all time. Do not mistake the concept of a game being a bad value for your dollar as being the same as a game being a bad game. I think Food Chain Magnate is excellent. I believe if you like economic games, you probably should get rid of a bunch of other games you have and go out and buy Food Chain Magnate. But Splotter Games give you a fairly terrible return on the components, the artwork, the graphic design compared to what a lot of games give you. You pick up a game like Coimbra is giving you decent amount of, okay, let's pick Caverna. Caverna's a better pick because it has so many components in it. Caverna's cheaper than this game. It has more artwork, more components, more heft, more everything in that game. And yet Food Chain Magnate is more expensive to get. Why is that? Are you just paying a premium for the game being good? Yes, by the way, the answer there is yes. You are paying a premium for the game being good. I don't know what it is about Splotter Games, but they produce incredible experiences that I believe everyone should try in some way. Not everyone. If you like economic experiences, I believe these games are worth trying. And I believe you should give it a shot and play them. But can you get 3-4 other also excellent games for the same price? Yes, you can. Can you pick up Coimbra, which is also an excellent game, for 30 bucks instead of 80? Yes. Yes, you can. And you probably should if you're factoring in how much money, how much game time you can get out of your dollar. Next up on this list is one that will not get me as much hate, hopefully. You never really know where this list will go. Number 10. Number 10 is the one you want to wait for. Number 9, we have Monumental. Monumental is nowhere near the love of Zombicide, Cthulhu Wars, of Food Chain Magnate, of whatchamacallit, Crokinole. So this one won't get me nearly the same level of hate, but I do have both. I haven't yet expanded my pledge on the second edition yet. On the expansion, I haven't yet upped my pledge from $1 because I'm not yet sure whether this game will stay in my collection. But whether it does or it doesn't, it's still overpriced. It is still not overpriced for the components, but it is a bad value for your dollar game. This is a deck builder. It is basically just a deck builder. It's a 4X game, sure, but it's really just a deck builder. It's a deck builder where you want to build your wonders, move your guys across the board. The combat isn't really that punishing. It is fun. I enjoy the game. I've played it a few times, and each game has gotten better, which is why I still own it and why I plan on playing it more and then hopefully upping my pledge. But at the end of the day, this is 200 bucks for an experience that you can get from Dominion for 30. You can get Dominion a few expansions and still be well under this price tag. And if I had to recommend one for someone who's trying to make the most of their money, I'd recommend Dominion any day of the week. I did it in the last video of 10 best games for your value dollar. I can't say words, it's all good. So yeah, Monumental, while a game that I am happy to own, while a game that I am happy to have in my collection, it's not a good value. Which brings us to number 10, which I don't have a box for. But that's okay, the hate will keep this going. And number 10 is Kingdom Death Monster. Kingdom Death Monster is an expensive game, which isn't enough to disqualify anything. But it's a game that I haven't played, so how can I possibly tell you that's a bad value for your dollar? And that's a great question. How can I tell you that? Maybe Kingdom Death Monster also offers the experience that Too Many Bones does. Maybe it also offers a world of depth that you just can't get from another game in any equivalent sense. And maybe to that end, Kingdom Death Monster should be a game that you should pick up. You should save your money week after week, year after year, and one day spend $400 and get that monstrosity of a box on your table, assemble your miniatures, and play the game. Maybe you should, but I don't think so. And here's why. When evaluating a game with that much love and that much of a fan base, I brought data to the table. Because that's the only way to actually hold a point, to hold an opinion. And that data is as follows. And we're going to start with Too Many Bones here, because Too Many Bones is the one that didn't make its way to this list. Too Many Bones has 1,393 people who have this game marked as owned on on BoardGameGeek. And yet, for the month of August so far, only halfway through, there are 248 plays of that game. The average price tag of Too Many Bones is somewhere in the range of $200. Or in other words, for every play of Too Many Bones, that's 1,123 collective dollars sitting in investment per play of that game. And I'll have all the math down below in terms of the description. So if you want to see the description, if you want to go through this and challenge me, by all means. But that's $1,123 of collectively owned Too Many Bones, based on people who recorded it, per play. And I picked Kingdom Death Monster as well. Let's go through each of these, because they all have this. I picked a bunch of heavy games that are well loved, that are expensive, that are hard to get to the table, and that was key. I wanted to pick games that are hard to get to the table. Next up we have Gloomhaven with 59,569 players, 3,466 plays, a price tag of $100. That's $718 per play. Collective value per play. It's more expensive than Too Many Bones. Too Many Bones actually has the best value. I'm ascending here. From there we have TI4, 14,361 copies, 235 plays at $120. That's $7,333 of collective value per play. Mage Knight, 37,973, 267 plays, $60. It's $8,533 of collective value per play. Seventh Continent, 27,737 copies owned, 406 plays for the month of August, $150 to get, in on a base pledge. That's $10,247 per play. And lastly, Kingdom Death Monster, 9,629 copies owned, 172 plays, $400 to get in on it. That's $22,393 of collective value per play. That's a terrible value for your gaming dollar. And no, I hear you. Who knows? Perhaps other players, perhaps Too Many Bones, TI4, perhaps Mage Knight players, maybe they're all just more likely to log their plays. But I'd argue that if anyone was willing to do useless paperwork for no apparent benefit, it would be a Kingdom Death Monster player. That's basically it. Kingdom Death Monster might be delivering an amazing experience. It might be delivering an experience that is worthy. It might be delivering an incredible experience. But the data seems to indicate that the amount of collective money sitting on the table per play of Kingdom Death Monster is just the worst value there. And by the way, I didn't cherry pick this data. I literally just picked Kingdom Death Monster, found the data, and then just picked a bunch of other games in the top 100 that are all well loved, hard to get to the table, and expensive. I didn't go through all of it, and I probably will put together another list, because I think that's actually a fun metric. Pulling all the data, trying to find the most overpriced games by that. I think that'd be a fun list to go through. I'll do that sometime. But for this list, I just thought Kingdom Death Monster was a good pick, and I wanted to validate it with data. And by the way, Kingdom Death Monster players, please come back and still subscribe to this video. I think your game's great. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's loved by many. But in terms of the data seems to indicate this is not a game that's seeing play in proportion to the amount of money sitting on the table. And that's base pledge only. I'm not talking about all the extras. I did the same for Seventh Continent, base pledge only. That's basically it. Just a quick recap. Any garbage game is just not worth it. The exit games at $15 per play, I just think they're not worth it either. Out of print games, Forbidden Stars, or anything that you are paying a premium to get, save your money for a cheaper game, assuming you're on a budget. Only get those expensive games once you've escalated your gaming and you've gotten to a point where you're willing to pay a premium. Tapestry, I think it's not a great value, I'm sorry. Cthulhu Wars is expensive compared to other games in its genre. Crokinole, while amazing, while incredible, while premium, and while a piece of art, it's just expensive. It is. From there we have all-in pledges. All-in pledges, I don't recommend starting up with all-in pledges until you have gotten to a point in your gaming career where you can reasonably justify having $1,000 of games sitting on your shelf because you don't know how to control yourself. Splotter Games, while excellent, and while any economic player should definitely give them all a shot, start with something like Coimbra first. Start with many other well-rated games, Lorenzo El Magnifico, Voyages of Marco Polo. There are so many cheaper, more accessible economic experiences, and then yes, at some point, get Moonshade Magnet. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Monumental, while a great game, and I don't yet know if it fits into my favorite games of all time, I do like the game. I enjoy playing it. I like deck builders in general, and this is a premium feel with miniatures on the board, but it's super overpriced. And then lastly, Kingdom Death Monster. The data seems to indicate that compared to even the worst other, keep in mind, Seventh Continent was $10,000 per logged play. Kingdom Death Monster is $22,000 per logged play. Picking 5 random games, and Too Many Bones, by the way, at 1,100. That's a pretty good, again, this list, all the data will be down below. I thought that was fascinating, and I plan on doing it on a larger scale with more stuff. Ultimately, buy the games that are right for you. Buy the games that you think are a right fit for your game group, for your budget, for yourself. But I thought this was a fun list. I enjoyed putting it together. I particularly enjoyed Kingdom Death Monster, and I really hope that no one takes it personally. I mean, it's just data, guys. Just data. Until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo. If you enjoyed this list, let me know in the comments down below. Like I said, I had fun putting it together, and I'll do more stuff like this. I mean, I think I think a top 10 worst value for your dollar list is a fun conversation to have. Let me know in the comments down below. More importantly, forget everything I said. Let me know what I missed. What is the worst value game that you can think of? What is an aspect? And I keep in mind, I did pick popular games. I didn't try to find some archaic whatever. I tried to pick games that have a degree of market recognition, that people would know, that people would identify. Because, I mean, it's no fun picking some game no one heard of and saying, by the way, this thing's overpriced. It's just not fun. But let me know in the comments down below. What games did I miss? What games did I not consider? And which one of these games am I horribly, horribly, horribly wrong on? I'll tell you right now, it's Food Chain Magnet, Crokinole, and probably Kingdom Death Monster. But hey, that's just my opinion. Until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo. Like and subscribe down below. If you enjoy these lists, there's always going to be more of them. If you enjoy my videos in general, just subscribe, comment, all that stuff. There's always going to be more content as long as I'm having fun with it. And you can bet I'm having fun with it. Have a good one.